Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Staltari, and I am a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last several years, I've been doing Fille, the King's Daughter, getting to know their stories a little bit better. There are over 700 of them. We're on episode 222. We've come a long way. Got a long way to go. But before we begin, let me show you ways you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know. Subscribe, like, and notify. All of that helps my logarithms and all that good stuff. And then the next couple of ways are ways you can help the channel truly grow. We have Coffee, which is a one-time payment, starting from $1 on up. And then we also have Patreon, which also starts at $1, which is a monthly contribution. And then we have a YouTube, not YouTube, but we have PayPal that you can find on my website as well. If you go on my website, Have Roots Will Travel, you will also find the PayPal button. And you can help out that way as well. So thank you so much to all my patrons, my supporters, and all of my viewers. I so treasure each and every one of you. So with that being said, let's get started and get to know episode 222. So our episode 222 is Marianne Metru. And she is a viewer request, and I have not seen her before in any of my files, so it was really a pleasure to get to know Marianne. So let's get to know her. So Marianne was born in 1656 in Paris, France. Her parents were Claude Metru and Jeanne Rousseau. Now, her father, Claude, was an agent to the Archbishop of Paris, so they were economically, obviously, well-to-do. She was part of the Sainte Marianne Church, and it no longer exists, but I did find a photograph, not a photograph, but an illustration of what it looked like. And it was situated on the Ile de la Cité, which is part of the 4th arrondissement. It was destroyed in 1856. The Ile de la Cité has been inhabited since the 1st century BC, when it was occupied by the Gauls. The right bank was first settled in the 5th century. Since the end of the 19th, Le Marais has been populated by a significant Jewish population. And now I just also want to draw your attention to the Ile de la Cité, which is part of that city, is part of the 4th arrondissement, the 4e arrondissement, as we would say in French. And it is obviously one of the oldest in the city. And it's known for its little streets and cafes and shops, but it's very congested, very expensive. And if you visit there, you're really wanting to get the old with the, the old part of Paris with a lot of different cultures. So this is where Marianne was coming from. Now remember, we said that Marianne came from a bit of money. So when her father died, she did embark on the journey of les Filles du Roi. She was on the Jean-Baptiste and arrived in Quebec on August 15th, 1671, carrying with her a dowry worth about 400 pounds, which is significantly higher than most of the girls. The groom that she selected and who selected her, his name was Jacques Samson, and he was born in 1647 in a commune called Saint-Gatien-des-Bois, and his parents were Toussaint Samson and Catherine Chevalier. You can see that Saint-Gatien-des-Bois is found in Normandy, and it is found in the Calvados department. It is essentially a very rural community. It has about 1,300 people living there. This is the Church of Saint Gatien, and it was built in about the 14th century. And this is an aerial view of this really picturesque rural part of Normandy. Beautiful place. Jacques would arrive in New France. He is featured in the 1666 census as a domestic servant, and is part of the Gervais-Buisson household. So there you can see Jacques. It says Samson, so Samson, and he's 19 years old. So he was obviously coming in as an engagé, and would most probably have completed his contract and stayed in Quebec. He most likely had accumulated a certain amount of money. He made a good match with this lady. On November 26, 1671, they were married in Quebec City. Go on to settle in Lauzon. Lauzon had really been around since 1636. Not much had happened to it until about 1661, when Charles de Lauzon took it over from his father and grandfather. And it was during his tenure, which would last another 30 years, that Lauzon really grew up, if you will. You can see the church that is situated there, some of the maps that have the Seigneurie of Lauzon there. One of the interesting things about Lauzon is the fact that it was named Lauzon, but it had so many names throughout history. So it's important that you know, in searching for your family, you may come across and say, is this the same place? It is. So it was known alternatively as Cap de Lévis, Côte de Lauzon, Saint-Joseph de la Pointe-Lévis, Saint-Joseph de Lévis, Point Lévis, and Point Levi. Point Levi probably was after the British captured Quebec. They probably renamed it for a little while, you know. And so this is where they settled. On to have an astonishing 17 children. Jean would die shortly before his 20th birthday. Marie-Suzanne would marry Louis Gay and have 10 children, all of whom would make it. Ignace would marry Marie-Charlotte Lemieux and have one child who made it to adulthood. Marie-Charlotte's mother was Marthe Beaugrand, a Fille du Roi, who we have not yet profiled. André would die in infancy. Charles-Louis would also die in infancy. Jeanne would marry Jean Carrier and have 5 children, all of whom would make it. Marie-Françoise would marry Louis Galaudet and have one child who made it. Marguerite would marry Michel Lemieux and have 10 children, 9 of whom would make it. Geneviève would die at 14. Charles-François, we are not sure what happened to him. Etienne would marry Marianne Guy and have 8 children, 7 of whom would make it. Jacques Charles would, we assume, did not make it. Joseph, we know, died in infancy. Geneviève would marry Jean-André Gilly and have 5 children, all of whom would make it. Jean-Baptiste would marry Elisabeth Lecourt and have 4 children, all of whom would make it. Joseph would marry Catherine Guy and have 5 children, 4 of whom would make it. And Louis would marry Catherine Bourassa and have 1 child who would make it. That's a lot of kids. Now, this is on the above little clipping here. We have the 1681 census. We have Jacques Samson, who was 34, his wife, 25, their children, Jean, Marie, Ignace, Marguerite. And then they have domestics. They have Olive, who is 17 years old, and Jean, who is 24. They have 1 gun, they have 9 goats, and 16 arpents valeurs, so about 14 to 15 acres of land. Jacques would pass away on May 3rd, 1699. He was relatively young at 52. He and Marie had been married 28 years by then. Very sad. On November 24th, 1710, approximately 11 years after her husband died, Marianne married Claude Chidepoux, who was a tailor and a merchant. They would only have 3 years together until he himself passed away. So after the death of her second husband, Marianne would not remarry. She herself would live on until she was 75 years of age, dying in 1731. At that point, she would have 90 descendants. Just tremendous. So Jacques and his brother Gabriel are featured in the 23rd volume of our French-Canadian Ancestors. I've given you the Facebook site where you can go and download the book. And Gabriel, his brother, would marry Francoise Durand, who was the daughter of a Fille du Roi, Françoise Brunet, who we profiled in episode 164. So if you want to have more information on that, that's the family that Gabriel married into. Let's have a look at something else that's interesting. What I love about that book, or that series of books about French-Canadian ancestors, is that it tells you some of the variations of names, because obviously the names over hundreds of years have changed. And it's also those the names and just how it might have evolved. And some of them seem really strange, but among the variations that you will find that connect to this family are Alexandre, Béziz, Salmaso, Samson, and Sanson. So be on the lookout for those spellings and names. A lovely memorial that Les Anciennes des Familles Samson did. Were established here at Lauzon. I was not able to find the location of this memorial, but and it's the hommage aux ancêtres des familles Samson, des frères Jacques and Gabriel. And so it really is nice to see that. I did not get to Lauzon this past summer, but that is definitely something on my list. And this memorial was posted in 1967. So very, very, it's been a while. I was not able to find the Association of Les Familles Samson. If anyone has information, please let me know and I'll post it. As always, I love to share my resources. One of my resources is la Société des Filles du Roi, of which I am a member and the membership chair, and I sit on the board. It is, even before I did all that, I was using this website for confirmation of things. There are some things you can look at not being a member, but if you are a member for a very nominal fee, you can access some of the journals or all of the journals and much more information that is listed there. You can belong to it as by proving your lineage to a king's daughter, or you can just become an associate member because you have an interest in that. So these are all things you have a look at that, and I posted the link to the website so you can have a look. And so we end episode 222. Marianne Metru was a survivor. There's no other way of, there to live till 75, to have married and remarried, to have 90 descendants as of 1729, and to just keep going on. She was one of the founders of Lauzon, being there so early on. Absolutely, her and Jacques are to be commended for their bravery, for their courage, for their vision, and most of all for honoring us with their lives. And we are thankful and grateful to them, as I am very grateful to my patrons and supporters for making certain that I know that the work I do helps in some way or entertains in another way. Appreciate all of your words of kindness and your support. It means the world to me. So with that being said, I will see you on episode 223. I forgot. I need to thank Shelby for the wonderful artwork that's part of this series now. Thank you, Shelby. All right, until I see you again, au revoir.